Hello, my friend, and welcome to this episode of A Call to Leadership. I'm Dr. Nate Sala, your host. I'm so glad you are here. Well, business life has cycles. Politics affect it. The economy affects it. And at the time of this recording, we are facing a recession right as we had just had massive inflation after the pandemic. And sometimes it's tough to get clients and customers when people are tightening their purse strings. They don't want to spend money. Well, it's not always going to be roses. I've invited someone who has expertise in this area. Mr. Mike McCloskey is back on the show. Can't wait for listening in. I'm Dr. Nate Sala, and this is A Call to Leadership. Mr. Michael McCloskey, thanks for coming back on the show.
What's happening?
Hey, man, what do you got? A Category 3 hurricane down there in Florida?
2 so far. But,
2 so far. When do you evacuate?
Well, hopefully never. It looks like it's heading up the Gulf towards, like the Panhandle a little bit. So we'll see. I'm down by Fort Myers that got demolished, unfortunately, by Ian last year. That was our first year living here. So far, so good. It looks like it's going to be just west of us. We might get some high winds, but that might be about it.
Well, hopefully you are safe and everyone else is safe there, which is a good segue to our conversation today about business and feeling safe. We were just talking about this before we came on air. It's an election cycle. I've talked a little bit about election cycles on the show, so our listener will have heard about this. We are about to have a presidential election in 2024 in the United States for all of our abroad listeners. And things change at home when an election is coming. In fact, I just had this conversation with a coaching student, a client, just this morning. People tend to become a little more conservative. They are not, they're unsure. And anytime that I'm unsure of the future,
that's right.
My confidence level decreases with consumer confidence. We call that in economic circles. And what happens when people have less confidence about buying things?
Well, unfortunately, the same thing everybody else does is they kind of pull those purse strings a little tighter.
That's right. Yes. And so in business, we experience this. You and I are both in the coaching and leadership space of business, and our clients then have trouble selling when people aren't buying.
That's right.
It's
it is interesting. We did a survey with some of the companies we work with not too long ago, and kind of find out, okay, so what's their top priority for 2024 as far as budgeting? And, some of the things were, HR compliance and, some a little bit in artificial intelligence, and a lot of things, but they're really looking at by line item where their money is going and, what's the bang for the buck they get from it for sure. So if you haven't heard about it yet and you are working with companies outside of your own, you will hear about it very shortly.
Yeah, no doubt. And of course, you couple that with mortgage rates being high and other factors that are impeding our decision-making, i.e. fuel prices and simply just the uncertainty of the state of the economy. Right. People will tend to start buying less. So that means that we have to be, as far as business goes, we have to be more strategic, more, as you said, tactical. So maybe what worked last month with your $1 million smile and your affability isn't going to get you that closing sale today.
That's right. Unfortunately. Right.
I know, right?
It is funny because, when there's money or perceived, just money out there, just kind of floating around in your, annual budget for your department, it's easy to add a program or, extra marketing or training and development, kind of just anything that kind of comes along. You look at it as a kind of an annual fee. It's kind of like how people get used to not recognizing they've got Netflix and HBO Max and, Showtime and everything else because it's just an Amazon because it's just a small fee every single month. And then all of a sudden when budgets get a little bit tighter, now you start to notice every single line item, for some of these companies especially.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's where we have to be more diligent and recognize the pain points more effectively, help people to find their solutions more with greater communication clarity. Now, we talk about the predictive index when you and I get together, often because this is your wheelhouse. This is your area of strength and expertise. You live the predictive index, which is, some people call it a survey. It's not a test, right? We don't want to call these tests, right?
Thank you, Nate. I appreciate that. Yeah.
And there's different you could call them roles or titles when like the different, what are they called?
It's really drives. What drives a person? How do they like to do their work? That's what we help companies figure out.
Yep.
If they can figure that out, we can pre know what the behaviors are going to be, and we can coach to those.
Right. Absolutely. And so you are a persuader. Is that right?
Right.
And so are there 17 different, I guess, what do you call them? Drive sets or?
There are. So it's like to your point, it's kind of like a personality profile, but it's really not. It's about drives. And so there are 17 different profile names. And so, I mean, 17 clearly is not enough to, cover the globe. So think of them like a zip code. So like I'm a persuader, there are captains, in one of the 17, there are controllers, there are all kinds of different altruists, all kinds of different titles. But think of it more like a zip code. So, if you're a persuader, that means you live in this zip code. It kind of tells me where you live, but there are millions as far as drive goes, where you live as far as drives go. But there are millions of people within that zip code. And so every one of those is different. It just kind of gives me an idea of where you live for your drives. That's all.
So your drive, then, that's a great way to word picture. I'm an altruist. And so your drive as a persuader, of course, persuasion is one aspect of influence. Right. And leaders, at least effective leaders, persuasion is one aspect of considered to be closely associated with effective leadership. So for you, it may be easier at least in terms of and we're talking about drives, to feel natural or comfortable in the drive to persuade, while someone else would feel less comfortable with that because it's not in their natural state or their natural drive. Help me if I'm missing a little bit of this, how we define that.
You're not missing at all. And matter of fact, the way that's kind of described with predictive index is just means I lead with my extroversion. So I can connect very, very quickly with people. I love doing it. Some people kind of have to turn that on a little bit in order to kind of get out of their shell. And I'm just one of those guys that never met a stranger. And so that is a blessing sometimes. And sometimes it's not, depending on who I'm interacting with, so.
Absolutely. So somebody who is in your profile would not hesitate, perhaps asking for the business, asking to close the sale if you thought it was the best fit.
Potentially. Yeah. That's one of the things that's kind of thought of a little bit differently. Often, kind of like what you said. Technically, people with a high persuasion are quick to build a relationship, but like a persuader specifically, their dominance is just a hair lower than their extroversion. And so sometimes, ironically, they look for the long-term relationship and don't actually ask for the sale as early on as they might have buying signals with. So people that generally lead with their dominance could have a opportunity to close very quickly, or at least assume the sale very quickly, but not build a relationship. So it could be a very quick sale without renewal or without taking a deeper dive. So there are pros and cons to each depending on what you're selling and who your audience is.
So as an altruist, then I'm gonna quiz you here.
Yeah.
How much of an aversion do you think I have to trying to close a sale quickly?
Yeah, you're much more into the long-term relationship building. Now, you want the sale, of course. You've got an agenda. We know that if we're talking to you about, your services, that you're going to want to, kind of close the deal. But you are much more concerned about ensuring that the relationship is going to be intact for long periods of time because you like that about your reputation, which is good. It's what a lot of people love about you.
Yeah, man, it's good. So this is why knowing thyself, right, is so important. The old Latin nocete ipsum, such a hallmark and a centerpiece of effective leadership is knowing your own drives, right? Where you have the highest level of comfort in how you interact with others.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So it's funny. It's shocking. Shocking is a better word than funny in this case, how many people don't have that self-awareness. They kind of know what feedback they've been given. Unfortunately, a lot of people think that feedback is wrong or it's kind of filtered. Someone says, hey, you might want to do this or adjust this a little bit. And, once we kind of run it through, as we all do, right, those filters through our mind, is this valid? Is this true? Is this valuable? Is it all these different things? Then we kind of come up with our own. And the only thing I ask myself when I get feedback is okay, is that the perception I want people to have of me, whether I believe it or not? If that's the perception someone had of me, is that what I want them to have? Sometimes the answer is yes. I want them to have that perception of me, and sometimes it's not.
And someone is listening saying, okay, what in the world does that have to do with the election and people wanting to buy less. It has everything to do with it, because if we can identify what our drives are, what our people's drives are, and hopefully even on some level what our clients or potential customers' drives are, it can help us to better have the conversation in a way that leads to meaningful change,
That's
i.e.
right.
the sale, right?
That's right. That not just internal, for yourself internally and for your team, but for your clients as well. It's a big miss in a lot of companies, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and so some of the roadblocks, I think, number one, people don't know where to go. They don't think another value, maybe another one before that even, they don't see it as a value. Like, we've done this
Right.
this way for this many years.
Right.
We're still in business. Well, that doesn't mean you always be in business. Just saying.
That's right. Yeah. What got you here won't get you there.
100%. Yeah. So as people are, as someone listening is it either beginning to or understands the possibilities for downturns in buying habits and patterns, what are some ways that you've experienced with your team or your own, your own coaching in terms of how to maybe have more flexibility or work within this changing dynamic we have in the sales funnel?
Yeah. Well, it kind of depends on, really what you're promoting or what your connection is to your client. I mean, there could be lots of different ways. So take that with a grain of salt with the things I'm about to say. There could be lots of different avenues, but for sure, you've got to build trust and credibility, because without that and value, they're just not going to spend any more money with you at all. We've got some clients, when we first started the business a long time ago, we kind of went what we believed was kind of over the top. We went above and beyond, and we've just kind of made that, part of our core values. I don't want anyone to ever say to me, well, I'm not really sure if what we did with you was worth the whatever it was they spent with us. I don't care if it was, $500 or tens of thousands of dollars, is irrelevant to me. I just want to make sure that they get the value out of it. My only way to really know that is what we've been doing the last several years, and that is by gaining business through word of mouth. We do almost no marketing, and we just keep getting referrals after referrals after referrals from people, our happy clients. Now, one of the things we teach, our team, is to sell, promote, persuade. And one of the things after they've been a client for a while is asking, who else do you know that could value from the services that we offer? And so we do get a lot of referrals because we ask for referrals, but they wouldn't do that if they didn't like the service they were getting. So that's been a big plus for us.
Interesting. I love how you framed it about getting the value, not wanting you to ever hear that the questioning of whether the value met the cost.
Right. That's
Yeah.
right. The only time that's ever happened with us, quite honestly, is only when there is a leader change or leadership change. And so what we try to do is we try to invest in all of the people that are our connections, in the company, and we make sure that we do data transfer or mental training transfer. Anything that we know, we want them to know. We don't want them to rely on us for stuff. So if they do leadership training, or if they do predictive index training, or if they do, whatever it is that we happen to work with them on sales training, we want them to know so much when we're done that they actually feel like they could teach it. And so if a new CEO comes in and says, hey, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore. This is X amount of dollars per year, and we don't see the value in it. Now, everyone that we've worked with is my internal advocate, and they start having a fit. They're like, are you kidding me? Like, we can't go through business without having this knowledge, without having this partner, on the outside as our consultants. And so now we've got all these different people promoting the business for us internally. And if one of those people leaves the company, they go and promote us wherever they happen to be going to as well. So we do this program called the Knowledge Transfer Base. And so we hate the fact that people rely on us to answer any questions. We actually want them to have everything that we have so that they can be self-reliant.
Wow. That's huge. I mean, how many companies are doing that, right? They have this knowledge transfer and the advocates internally.
Right. Yeah, it's great for us. I mean, but think of it like, if you wanted to use Word, right, for example, or Outlook, what if you had to call your specialist every single time you wanted to use Outlook? because you didn't understand it well. Eventually you want to just get it down so you don't have to call somebody, and that's our goal. We want to be that internal partner as the years progress for different and new challenges that they've got, but we want them to fix one challenge so well and have those internal, kind of masterminds inside the company trained so well that they don't need us for that particular topic anymore.
How much then time are you investing in training your customers? Is that a big part of your business?
It is. It's a really big part. So it depends on what they're looking for. We don't teach them anything that they don't sign up for. We don't want to assume they need it, but we do allow that to level up. In different layer up, I should say. With okay, now that you've done this, generally what we find is our clients begin to struggle in these areas because that opens them other doors. And so tell me a little bit about how you're working on this in 2023 or 2024. And just a lot of times I'll say, well, we're not working on that next, but we're working on this.
Yeah.
And so we may not have a solution every time, and we don't try to push a solution. We just want to make sure that they know we are there for them if they need assistance.
Well, it becomes a true partnership at that point.
That's right.
It's less about the sale and how I can benefit from giving you a product or a service, and more about how can we help each other along this journey.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. And I think that changes the relationship.
I completely agree. We do a discovery call with all of our new clients, and then we redo those every year with our existing clients. And one of the things we ask them is, what are you working on? Why are you working on it? Give me some history here. And I had a guy call me the other day. It was probably about 3 weeks ago, who was a CEO of a company, and he got our name from an existing client. And he says, "All right, you got 10 minutes. Tell me what you do." I said, we do a lot of things, but that's not how we do a discovery call, And he says, "Well, I heard you were pretty good at what you did. So, what is it that you do? Like, give me your pitch." I said, "Listen," I don't have a pitch. I said, "We help companies solve problems. So if you want to talk to me a little bit about what your initiatives are for the remainder of the year, and some of the things that you're doing to hit those initiatives, and where you might be struggling, or where you think you've got it all down pat, either one, I'd love to hear the story. Let me know." And he goes, "Well, I don't really have time for that." And I said, "Okay, well, have a great day then." And he was shocked that I wouldn't continue to, quote, sell him or promote the business. I said, "Look, that's not what we do. We're a partnership that solves problems. We don't go in and sell you crap you don't need."
That is so good, Mike. And I think that resonates because someone listening, it's resonating because not everyone is the best fit for my product. Mm-hmm. Not everyone's the best fit for my service. Right. And it comes back to what you said very early on in our conversation today, is about our values. You had mentioned that the values will align your business, and if we're not clear, and someone listening has said, "Yeah, I know you've talked about this a lot, Nate. I can't not talk about it enough." Right? The values that we have are what our principles are, and our principles will then define the boundaries and the borders we have as an organization. They will create our reputation because that's how we live, and that will eventually become our brand. So right. It's important.
That's right. Yeah. And those actually tie in. We've never really talked about this. Maybe this is a future show, but we've never even really talked about, our personal core values. We've talked a lot about our, predictive index results. We've talked a lot about the core values of a company. But those all blend in with our personal core values, and how we are driven to sell or to promote, or are we just out there to close the deal because I, desperately need some cash, versus, what my ultimate objective is with my personal values.
Yeah. And so absolutely, I'd love to have that conversation. We can even go through some others. I mean, look at Steve Jobs' personal values, or Elon Musk, which turned them, or Walt Disney for that matter. These are personal values that translate into business values that ultimately led each of these individuals to become icons of entrepreneurship.
That's right.
And
I said sometimes they're different, because if you work for a company, sometimes your core values might be a little bit different than your personal, business core values. But if you are owning the company, they should align. You have the right to choose those based on your personal core values.
Correct. I agree. Yeah. And so as a business owner, there'll be much overlap because they'll exude from as an employee. You want your personal values to again, align, as you said, with the company, because if they are not aligned, then there will be issues that you're going to have with your employer. You're not going to agree with the direction they're going in. You may have a personal core value of integrity, and they are an Enron.
That's
It's
right.
not going to work well for anyone. Well, hopefully
Right.
they're not Enron, but for those listening who weren't around in the early 2000s, Enron had C-suite that was completely corrupt, and along with Tyco and WorldCom and others during that era.
$680 million payout to their executive team before they went under.
Jeez. Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
And so the value proposition then leads us to determine whether or not a certain type of customer or client is a fit, like in your example right there. Because you're willing to cut that conversation off at the time where the values don't align, that means it gives you an opportunity to open up with someone else who they do align with. Because when it's all said and done, you want to work with people who you know will absolutely love your product or your service, who will become that brand advocate, that raving fan. And it's so important sometimes for us to recognize that early on.
Yeah.
And not just say, oh, well, absolutely, I'll just go ahead and run it right in my sales pitch. If that's not you and your company, then that's not your customer.
That's right.
If that's all they value.
I think of it like the one-hit wonders, right? They come out with this amazing song, and that's generally who that CEO would hire. It's kind of like this one-hit wonder just to say they brought somebody in for a specific topic. It would be the fad of the month or the quarter, not really a solution. It wouldn't really solve anything. It would just be interesting and maybe fun. And that's it. So, we don't want to be that. We want to be that strategic partner that helps solve problems and helps the companies grow and, do well and do whatever it is their core values want them to be. And so I know I could have gotten in that company very easily, and I would have been forgotten about, in that company 90 days later. And that's not what we're looking for. Now, we don't have to be partners in every project either. I mean, I get that, but we don't want to be the one-hit wonder. We want to be, like Billy Joel that's still doing concerts around the world, or Aerosmith, or whoever you like that's still putting out, music and traveling the world still and doing great things.
Well, that selectivity is also a representation of your integrity as an organization, because your integrity is where you are whole and undivided. And when you are divided, that means you're compromising your integrity. Believe it or not.
That's right.
So we have a responsibility to walk with integrity, not just to ourselves, but to all of our stakeholders, because they're counting on us.
This is super important for brand new business owners too, because, I find that brand new business owners do that more often than anyone else. And it's not because they want to, it's just because they're so desperate sometimes to get their first or 10th client that they look back on that. I guarantee you'll look back on it, a few years from now and go, this is the kind of client I fired. I will never work with them again. I will never let that happen again, because those were the year or client that made my life just really, really bad. I hated the quality of my life at the time. It wasn't my client. It wasn't me working with them, and so it makes your life very, very rough when you kind of make choices that aren't good for you.
Absolutely, it's literally lowering your standards and to the point to where it can be detrimental. And that's really what your values are. They're your standards in a lot of ways.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And so as someone listening is like, I'm a new business owner, I have to take anything and everything.
Right.
Well, just know that it's unsustainable. You may be in a spot right now. I've been in that spot. I know you've probably been in that spot too, where it's like, yeah, okay, we'll just do. Man, I tell you what, when I first started doing taxes, I charged $10 for a basic tax return.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, how did I not know you back then?
You did not know me, right? I don't even think I was making money. Of course, it was a basic tax return, basically one W-2, single person, and I even think I was losing money because I had I thought I was gonna be like Amazon. Right. If I just, if I lose money the first 3 years, I'll have $1 billion company.
Yeah. It's that easy.
It's that easy. It's not that easy. However, eventually I evolved and I recognized that we had a high value product, high value service offering, and that we were going to discern and not necessarily discriminate, but there was a best client for our services. And we got a lot of pushback. I got a lot of pushback internally even. And I had to explain in such a way that there's only so much of us to go around.
Yeah.
And because there's only so much of us, there's only so much of you to go around. And I want to give the best of me to the client who deserves the best of me, because not only do they appreciate it, but it's going to give them the highest possible value for their exchange.
That's right. Just a couple of things I'm thinking about, as you were talking, because it resonates. One is, yes, we've both been there. You take that client and you kind of run with it. Just know that you may need to when you start off, but you don't want all of your clients to be that way. Make it the exception and not the rule, just to make a buck. Every once in a while you might have to take a client. It's not like you're totally outside of your core values. It's just not your perfect or ideal, client. That's all. So, I'm not saying, break your morals or your integrity on anything. I'm just saying, of course, that may not be the perfect client for you, but sometimes you work with people, maybe they're really well connected to the clients you do want to get. So, I kind of listed that or chalked that up to marketing, in my opinion, kind of have done that before. I do that almost none now. I don't do it at all anymore. But when I first started off, I kind of made excuses for doing it. So there will be that time. The second thing is, some people might be thinking, okay, well, Nate and Mike, you guys work directly with companies, you work with individuals, you're business coaches, people coach. And so I sell a software. I hear this quite a bit. I sell a software. I can sell it to anybody who wants it. Again, be very picky over what you're selling and to who. I don't care if it's a software. I don't care if it's a one-on-one coaching. I don't care what it is. At the end of the day, if your software is written off as a line item expense that they don't want anymore, there goes not only your referral, but people have a tendency to talk poorly about stuff they got rid of, even if it wasn't supposed to be sold to them in the first place. And so, oh, that was a really poor product. I hated it. I didn't like it. I never even used it. Don't waste your money. Now I use this. Well, this over here may not be right for the person they are speaking to. It might only be right for somebody else. So don't be anxious to close a deal no matter what you're selling or what product it is.
That's good. And I think that circles back around to this conversation on the downturn in the market. Because if we're going to know who our ideal client is and speak to them in such a way that builds that trust, that builds that credibility, that creates the deepest level of rapport that they know our worth in their world, then it's much more likely that they're going to say, hey, look, I'm in a tough spot with the economy, this and that, but I know that with your partnership, we can guide it through. I may make some change or recommendations to how our relationship works, but it's not going to end.
That's right. That's right. And they're going to get rid of everything else that they know does not have an ROI. So, you've not only got this business relationship with them, but it almost feels like a personal relationship. It's not like you're grilling out, and out having a beer together, but for sure, you've got this relationship where they kind of feel like you are on their team. Like, I am a member of the executive team in a lot of cases, where I sit in on a boardroom meeting just like anybody else would, that's on that senior team. And so, they don't even think of me as an outsider anymore, which is really nice, right? And so when it comes time to investigate, issues or problems or concerns about, income or revenue streams or things like that, I'm part of the conversation instead of being the conversation of whether I'll be moving forward with them.
Yeah, it really comes down to your how indispensable you become, moving from a potential adversary to a trusted and needed ally.
That's right.
100%. In fact, I just had a situation to where I have a couple of colleagues. One is a consultant who was going into a business that was hurting, and initially the question was, man, I don't know if this person is going to be able to help me, and it's not cheap. I'm already losing money, and I'm very apprehensive because it's potentially an adversarial relationship. You're trying to take two things that belong to me, my time and or my money, and I don't know if it's worth it. And probably within the first 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I get a call from the client who said, hey, I just want to let you know, I am not getting rid of this consultant. I need this person longer than the term. And because I was going to put that consultant into a different role or partner with that consultant in a different role after this term is over, you can't take this consultant. They're mine now. And I love that. Locked in because they see the tremendous value proposition of the relationship.
That's right.
And what kind of value it brings beyond the money. Now, there's nothing, and I mean nothing in the presidential election that's going to change this desire to continue to keep this person on because they matter.
Yeah, again, you're on the team. You're not an independent consultant. You're literally on the team, and that's how they need to look at you. All that comes from your initial conversation with them and not going into sales mode like the guy wanted me to do, a few weeks ago. Give me your pitch. I don't have a pitch. This is not me sitting down here and selling myself on why you need me. It is, do I have a solution for a problem? And if I do, I'll tell you about it. If you choose not to go with it, no problem. But just know your problem won't be fixed without this solution.
That's really good. And you're on the team. That resonates with me as well. When we go into a new advisory relationship in the tax world, so with my accounting and advisory firm, when we start an advisory engagement, it's pretty comprehensive, Mike, because there's so much tax law, so much strategic tax planning that requires a team. And so when I do the welcome call or the kickoff call, I introduce your team. These individuals. This is now your team of accountants and advisors and CFOs and whoever else that now is here to make sure that your blind spots are seen, the problems that you don't know you have are found, and to partner with you in accomplishing far greater than you ever thought possible alone. I mean, that's the relationship and how it changes dramatically. And I think that's a key to continuing to move forward in some of the tumultuous times that we're facing.
It is. Our clients don't meet the entire team, obviously, because some are irrelevant to them. But you met our client support specialist. You met our director of learning and development. Obviously, I work directly with you when you have questions. And so, and you've been around assessments and different things like this for quite some time. So you actually were much more aware of some of the things that I'm working with you on, way more than some of our existing clients. So you had probably 10 steps ahead of everybody else. So I actually, have contact with you less than some of my other clients. But, in fairness, they reach out quite a bit. They have full access to us, when they want to. And that's a good thing. We want them to know, we're going to be there. It doesn't mean all of us are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but somebody on the team will answer their question if they need some assistance. So they know we're going to be there for them.
I love it. Become a part of the team. I guess that's one of the takeaways today. Don't just be and stick to your values, whatever they may be. If you value the longer range of the relationship, which we do, Mike and I certainly share in that goal, especially with businesses. And it doesn't have to be just the coaching and whatnot. It can even be with software. It's a relationship. No matter what the product or service is, you are in relationship with it.
That's right. Once you're kind of in, it's a really, really good feeling because, people, those individual advocates fight for you. Again, not just in the company they're in, but the company they're going to, and in companies that they also are affiliated with or they work with. They'll go promote you better than you'll promote yourself, which is really, really nice. I mean, I can do marketing all day long and it's going to be all irrelevant if, I have one person say, oh, he's a pain in the neck to work with. And so that allows us to position ourselves as that referral contact for people that come in. We've got those relationships, we've got the results, obviously, and we can easily say at that point, hey Nate, who do you know? Name 3 people that you could introduce me to that you believe I might be able to bring some value to, or at least maybe just people I should know that are maybe going through the same thing you went through last year. And almost 100% of the time, I'll at least get 2, and quite a bit of the time, I'll get actually 3 referrals. If I ask for 5, I might get 5, but we kind of keep it at 3 because we're pretty positive we're going to get 3. That's how close we are with the clients, and it works almost every time.
Yeah, that's something that we can't explain or gird enough. Yeah. Is the power of the brand advocate with as your customer isn't just the CEO. It's not just the salesperson. It's everyone who interacts with your product or your service. Right. That's the customer. And I know with our leadership elite development group, everybody in that group, Mike, has an iPhone but me. And let me tell you how many brand advocates there are for iPhones for that particular group. I have been grilled for the last 3 years of leading this group. Why don't you have an iPhone?
If I would have known, I would have been another one grilling.
You would have been another one, right? Yeah. But that brand advocacy is a powerful influencer. And so what I had not considered doing, I've almost pulled the trigger several times. And I've got the iPod, the AirPods, the ear things. I got a watch.
Slowly but slowly, honey.
That's awesome, Mike. It's always good to have you on the show. You're just a wealth of knowledge and content. We're just so thankful for you.
It's always fun. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Always love being here.